And now I want to cover some rules of thumb for user-defined functions, just so that you can get an overall sense of how functions fit into Python programming. So most professional Python code is written within functions or methods. So we haven't covered methods yet. These are just functions that are attached to a class and essentially look almost identical to functions. We'll learn about that more when we cover classes. All right, so that is very important to know, is that almost all of the code that you will see when you look at professional development is written inside of a function. So or many different functions. So it's going to be very common for you to create user-defined functions during your programming career. And that's where we are going to be headed now in the future. So all of our code that we've written previously, we're really going to turn it into functions. And then we can just call that function, which will allow us to reuse that code over and over again. So once we've written some code one time, we don't have to keep writing it. We just use a function which we can just reference, which will just execute all of that code. So generally functions should do one task and do it well. So you shouldn't try to fit too many things inside of a single function. You want that function to work well, all of the time. And that generally means just have a single task that is dedicated to it. So if your function is doing too many tasks, you might want to think about breaking it up into multiple functions. And this is just a common thing that will happen during programming. You'll be writing a function. You don't know ahead of time of how many functions you're going to need to complete all of the tasks for a certain project. You might have one big function in the beginning and then start to break it up. And then as you add more features for your project, you'll end up writing more and more functions. So it may not be clear at first when to break up a function into multiple functions, but the more you program, the more you'll get a sense of when this breaking up will happen. All right, so this is very roughly speaking, so don't take this as a certainty, but when you get to 20 plus lines, 30, especially like 50 plus lines of code in a single function, that can signal that it is too long and you might want to break it up. A lot of functions are just one line of code, so that's common as well. It doesn't have to be up to 20 lines. Really, whenever you feel like the task is complete and it's doing it well, and that's when you can stop your function. But just a very roughly speaking, if you're get above 20 lines, you need to think about whether or not you can break up this function into multiple functions. All right, so that is just a little rules of thumb for user-defined functions.